Hello, Mrs. Starkman. How are you?
I'm fine, and please call me Rita.
Okay, I will do. Well, welcome, Rita. Thank you for being here this morning, and thank you, Amanda, for arranging this for us.
Of course.
Rita, I'm going to jump right in with
Sure.
a brief introduction because, and this is a big privilege to have you here. Thank you for having us and giving us this time. You were born in Poland in 1941, and your name was Henia. And at
Right,
just 16 months old, you were placed with a Polish family since Jews were being herded into ghettos. And when
right,
Polish families were afraid of being caught and you were abandoned on a train, and a Polish couple, Emil and Helena Matern, who were unable to have children of their own, adopted you. There you
right,
were baptized and renamed Teresa.
right,
When you were reunited with your biological family and moved to Canada, they renamed you Rita, the name you carry until today.
right.
If you don't mind to share with the Four Arts audience, I have three questions, and I'll start with the first two in a row. Number one, how were you reunited with your biological family, and was that easy for you? And number two, you probably couldn't even remember the time that you were Henya. Do you remember when your name was Teresa? And what did that feel like to then have your name changed yet again to Rita? So, how was your reunion and going back to your biological family? And what were the name changes like for you?
Okay. So first of all, um, I was placed with a Polish family that my parents knew, and as you said, it was getting very scary because the Nazis were finding Jewish children in Polish families, and they were killing the entire family. So, a relative of the family I was placed with, who had come into town, said, "It's not safe for her to be here. Let me take her, and I'll take her to somewhere for safety." So he took me on a train, and instead of taking me somewhere, well, for safety, the train came to the end in a small town called Rosvadov. And everybody got off the train, including him. And I was left on the train, and I was a baby, and I was crying. And the cleaners came on the train, and they found the baby. They took me to the police station and Children's Aid, and he watched to see what would happen to me from afar. So he knew when this couple, Emil and Helena, came, who wanted to adopt me, and thankfully the Nazis, the police, whoever said yes, and didn't really know that I could be a Jewish child or not. And he watched, and he got the name of the people that did adopt me and where they lived. And then he disappeared, and he didn't know what would, happen after the war. So that's they adopted me, and they named me Teresa. I didn't know anything. I was like 16 months old, or by that time maybe I was about 18 months old. And I lived with them during the war. Um, the woman's husband, Emil, he had been on a wanted list because he was with the Jewish, I mean, he was with the Polish underground. And because it was a small town and there was a lot of publicity, he was recognized. So he was arrested, he was put in jail, and ultimately, whether he just died or they killed him in jail, but he died. So I grew up with Helena and her family. We moved from that town um, to her hometown where she had a lot of relatives. And I lived with her during the war. She was amazing. She was wonderful to me. I was a very spoiled child. She indulged me, the sun, the stars, the moon, I mean, everything, because she had wanted a child, never had one. And then, of course, losing her husband. Anyways, I was really pampered, as much as you can be during a war. Uh, Fast forward, the war is over. Thankfully, my father, who spoke fluent German and Polish, survived on Polish papers. My mother, thankfully, survived Auschwitz, and I had a sister and a brother. My sister was also given to a family. The family was also very scared, and they kicked her out. She was wandering around. She was about 8.5, 9 years old. Um, she was picked up by the, I don't know, Nazis, police, whoever, put in a concentration camp, shipped to Treblinka where they killed her. My brother was with another Polish woman who was also wonderful to him. And my father sometimes came, took him out with him for a while, brought him back to the family, and my brother survived. So, P.S., the war is over. My mother makes her way back to our hometown. My brother, my father, and now my father has to find me. So he goes to the family that he gave me to. They tell him the story. They give him the name and contact info on the man who took me on the train. My father gets in touch with him. The man gives my father the name of Emil and Helena and their address, and my father goes hunting to find me. When he goes to the address, they had owned a sort of a cafe, and it was all boarded up. And so he went to some neighbors and asked if they knew where the woman and the little girl uh, went. And a couple of the neighbors didn't know, and they kept sending him to another neighbor and another neighbor. And finally, somebody said, I wonder, I think she probably went back to her hometown. And they told my father the hometown, which was Poznan. My father went there. He actually went to the government offices and found the address because he had her name, and he went to the address. We lived in a apartment building. Some of her family also lived in that building. There was I don't know if it was a sister or sister-in-law, but we lived with this person. And I think it was below us was another family member who had a child that was just a year older than me. And I had become very best friends with this little girl over the time. My father knocked on the door. Um, she said, "Who's there?" My father said, "I have a letter for you." She opens the door. My father says to her, "You have my daughter. I want her back, please." And she's hysterical. She starts yelling and screaming. "What do you mean? She's not your daughter. She's my daughter. You can't have her." Um, Yelling and screaming. And there was no way that she was going to give me up. And my father says, I will pay you for all your expenses and everything, but this is my daughter. We survived the war. I really, it's my biological daughter. I want her back. Anyways, there was no way. And he couldn't just, you know, I wasn't around. He couldn't just grab me and go. So he said, "Well, I have to go now, but I will be back." He stayed around for a couple of days in the background and watched where she went and whatever. And finally, he went back. He discussed this with a cousin of ours, um, and this cousin had some Russian friends, and they decided that they were going to go there and just kidnap me, just take me sort of by force. So they show up one day. They knock on the door. She answers the door. There's a few people, I don't know how many, with rifles and guns. And they're like, "We've come for the child." And she, again, is hysterical and yelling and screaming, and you can't have her. And they say to her, "Look, you can either give us the child and we will pay you money, or we will just take the child, we will send you to Siberia, and that will be your fate. Anyway, she's just hysterical. And some of the neighbors now hear, and the neighbors are running up, and someone's yelling, "We've called the police." So this cousin of my father's with his Russian friends ran away because they were illegally there. And if the police came, they would have been arrested and probably executed. So that didn't work. Then my father decided that the only option was to go to court. So he got lawyers and we went to court. The trial lasted, I believe it started about the beginning of December, and they got a verdict at the end of March. There were a lot of witnesses for her. There were a lot of witnesses for my father. Um, and just to get back to when the Russian and my father's cousin was there, I was there at the time, and there was this little table in the hall, and they were like at the doorway, and I hid under the table thinking they couldn't see me, but I could see them. And of course they could see me, but I was a little kid. I didn't understand. I didn't know. So I was terrified. So getting back to the trial, my father ended up winning the trial on a technicality, and that being that the person who legally adopted me was Emil, and Emil was dead. So the adoption was, nullified. So
And
because I
how
was no,
old were you at this time?
oh, good. This was, I believe, in March, oh my God, March of 1946.
So you were about 5 years old.
Yeah, about 5.5 or something. Um, Almost 6. No, 5. I don't know. Anyway, so it was determined that she would bring me to where my real parents lived, which was a city called Ostrovets, and that she would stay with us for a little while to get me accustomed to my parents. Um, and she waited quite a few months, and finally, um, I believe it was, I'm not sure, but I believe it was around December of 1946 that she finally came. She stayed with my parents for 3 months. Now,
Helena?
I, Helena, now um, okay, I wasn't taught to hate Jews, but when I was living with Helena and playing out on the street and whatever, I mean, it was everywhere. Everybody hated the Jews, and the Jews were so terrible and whatever. Um, so I hated Jews. And now I find out I'm Jewish. My I used to my family used to tell me to play with my brother, and I would turn around and say, "He's not my brother. He's a dirty Jew." Um, what could I say? I didn't know any better. My mother only spoke Yiddish, Jewish. I could never talk to her. My father did speak Polish. I could converse with him, and my brother spoke Polish. I could converse with him. Um, I was not easy to get along with at that time. I wouldn't eat any Jewish food. My parents had to hire a Polish cook to cook food for me. Um, I cannot really remember how the transition sort of happened that I kind of accepted them. It just did. They were so good to me. Um, and they were very good to Helena. And eventually, my father said to Helena that we have to leave Poland. Poland was communist at the time, and we had to get out. And my father said to her, "We are going to Canada, and we will take you with us. You saved my daughter's life. You can live with us. I will support you for the rest of your life. You will be part of our family." But she declined that because I don't know why, but she had a lot of family in Poznan where we had been living, and she, I guess, was afraid. Something happened, but it went back on. My internet isn't great. Anyways, she refused to come, and one morning, I wake up, like her and I would sleep together in the same bed in the same room. And one morning, I woke up and she was gone. And uh, frankly, I never saw her again.
What
Um,
was that like for you?
I don't 100% remember. It was devastating. Um, but things were happening very quickly. My parents were overindulgent with me, trying to make me, happy and wanting to be with them. I was very spoiled. Um, and somehow along the way, I learned to accept them, and slowly I learned to love them. And I don't know exactly when that happened. Um, we came to Canada at the when we landed in New York. We actually, my mother's uncle had sponsored a visa for us to come to Canada via New York. So we came to Canada um, at the end of 1947, and we actually came to Montreal, which was where my mother's uncle was, but my father couldn't find a job. So he came to Toronto, found a job, got a house, and we came. Um, my father was in the candy business in Poland, and we had a very large candy factory there. Um, so that was the only thing he knew. So he got a job in a candy factory. My mother got a job. Uh, my brother and I went to school by ourselves. My brother was 6 years older than me. Um, and uh, my parents turned out to be amazing. I worship them. I love them dearly. My brother, who at one time I called a Jew, um, everybody should have a brother like I had. He was the most wonderful, awesome. There's not enough words to describe him. He was phenomenal. He was the best brother anybody could ever have. We became the best of friends. Um, I loved him. He loved me, uh, and we came to Canada. So,
Did you keep in touch with Helena?
yes, I was just going to say that. Helena did write a couple of letters. I heard that she had gone to learn a little bit of English. Um, I was like, what, 6, 7 years old. I didn't know from writing letters. I came here, I only spoke Polish. I soon learned to speak Jewish first, and then I learned English. Um, my father did write back to her. She sent me some photographs, a little autograph book. Um, but it was difficult. My parents, who had gone through such horrors, wanted to forget about the war. And my parents mostly wanted me to be completely 100% their daughter. Um, so, although I knew as I was getting older, I knew the story because my father would tell everybody the story about me. So I heard it often and I knew about Helena. But no, I didn't write back because I didn't know how to write. And my father did write back a couple of times or three, I don't know. But eventually the correspondence stopped. As a teenager, I decided I wanted to go back to Poland to see her. But Poland was communist. My passport says I was born there. Had I gone back, I would not have been allowed to leave the country. So I couldn't go back. Um, Several years later, whatever, we got a letter from Helena saying she was very ill and she needed some medicine that she couldn't get in Poland. And could we send her this medicine? So I took the letter to the pharmacy. I showed it to the pharmacist and I said, "Can I buy this medicine?" And he sort of looked at me funny and said, "No, you know you can't buy medicine without a doctor's prescription. And even if you had the medicine, you can't send it out of the country." So that was the end of that. And and that was the end of our correspondence. I always wanted to go back to Poland. Um, my father wanted to go back just to see what happened to our, like he had this candy factory, just to see what happened to that. And um, my mother, of course, never wanted to set foot in Poland. And in the meantime, I got married, I had children, and things, my life just went on. Um, my parents died. My mother in 1992, my father in 1993. I got divorced and I always wanted to go back. So in 1998, my brother happened to get in touch with a professor in Montreal who was going to Poland. And he asked him if he would try to find this family, if he would try to find, um, we knew that Helena had passed away, but this little girl that lived below us, who was my very best friend, we knew her name. And, um, we had the address of the building that we had lived in. And we asked if he could find her. And he went, and when he came back, it was a miracle because he had found the family. He had found her. She was, now she was also divorced. She had a son who did speak English and a grandson. And she was, when he told her that, I was alive and like I was the one and my brother who were looking for them, she was like hysterical. She was so excited and so happy. So when he came back and gave us her address and name now and everything, um, I had to write her a letter. And I was very scared to write because I really, although he said that she was so happy to hear from that I was alive and I was looking for them, I was really terrified that the whole family, they would absolutely hate me because I left Poland and that was the end, and we stopped writing and we distanced ourselves. And I was really, I figured that they would absolutely hate me. But so I wrote this letter and told her how I was and whatever, and that I wanted to come to Poland. And, definitely I wanted to see her. And I didn't know how this would be received. Um, but to my amazement, she wrote back a letter, so happy and so excited. And um, she told me Helena had talked about me every day of her life. And they were so excited and wanted me to come and were so welcoming. And I was frankly shocked. Um,
So
so
she
I
had
wrote,
been in touch with Helena throughout her adult life.
they were very close, yes.
That's very nice.
She had been in touch with Helena until the day Helena died. They were a very close family. Um, anyways, so I wrote back saying that I was going to come. I don't remember if it was June, July, but that summer, and I was going to come with my brother and two of my children. And she wrote back saying she was excited that I was going to come, but could I delay it a little because she was in the process of building some sort of house, and the house would have room for all of us because where she was now, she didn't have room for us to stay with her. And I mean, that was very touching that she would want us to stay with her. Um, but I was not going to stay with her. That was never part of my, what I wanted to do. So I wrote back and I said, I'm so sorry, but this is the only time that my children can come, and it's very important for them to come. And I told her I had booked a hotel. So I told her the name of the hotel. I told her that I booked my plane tickets. So I had told her in that letter um, the day I was coming in. And I would love it if she would come to the hotel like the next day, and for lunch or stay the afternoon for dinner, whatever. So that's what happened. We got to Poland. We were in the hotel, and I'm waiting in the lobby with my brother and my two kids. And in comes, I think it was one, two, three, four people, and they're standing at the doorway, kind of, looking because they were looking for me. And we're looking at them thinking maybe that's them. And I
Mhm.
looked completely different because when I was a little girl, I had this dark brown hair, and now I was blonde. And of course, it was many years because I was um, a lot of years. Anyways, I kind of stood up and they kind of started to walk toward me, and I'm walking toward them. And I guess at the same time, she said, like, Teresa, and I'm like, Marishka. Her name was Marishkiana, but we called her like Marishka. And we hugged and kissed, and it was joyous. And um, it was really, it was awesome. So they came, they sat down, they had brought a bunch of pictures. Um, and I actually had a lot of the same pictures because Helena had sent me some pictures. So we actually knew this was true, that we were who we were. And one of the things, uh, so there was Mariska and her son, and there was, and I don't remember her name, but this was, as I say, either Helena's sister or sister-in-law, the woman that we lived with. We had a room and we shared a bed in this woman's apartment. And then there was this man. Now, he was a cousin of ours. He was, 5 or 6 years older than we were at the time as little girls. And we used to always chase him and play with him and, make his life miserable like little kids can do to an older, sort of sibling or relative. And it turns out during our conversations, he was the first one to get married, and he had a daughter, and he named his daughter Teresa after me. And I started to cry because this was just so, so emotional. Um,
That's so beautiful.
it was unbelievable. So we had a wonderful afternoon, and
Did they
we,
call you Teresa throughout the visit?
you know what, I don't even remember. I don't know.
Because your
Um,
name had already been changed to Rita at that
oh
point.
yeah, yeah. But just going back a little bit to when I was a teenager in high
Sure.
school, um, I've always hated the name Rita. And I'm not going to tell you how I got it because I don't want anybody to know how I got it,
No,
honestly.
no.
I've always hated it. Um, and um, when I was in high school, I tried to change my name. Now, I couldn't change it back to Teresa. So I tried to change it to Terry or Tracy, something, sort of close to Teresa. And I asked my friends to call me that. And it didn't take. It just didn't work. And finally, my couple of my friends said to me, "Look, Rita, everybody knows you as Rita. This isn't going to work. Just forget it. You're Rita." So that was my um, love of the name Teresa, or connection, or maybe not so much love, but connection.
Right. Perhaps the reason why you disliked Rita so much is because it didn't feel like it was yours.
I don't know, but I always, I don't know.
What is your mother's Hebrew name?
That's very funny. My mother's name was Henia. No, that
Uh,
was my name. That was my name. My mother's name was Hinda, Hindela.
that's my name.
I know.
I'm
I
Hinda.
I forgot I was going to tell you that.
And you say Hindela. My grandmother called me Hindela. And my
Yeah.
aunt Sivi Guppin called me Hindela. All the people who were close to me called me Hindela as a term of endearment. And my name is
Yeah.
Hinda.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you are let's put Rita and Teresa aside for a minute. Your name is Henya Bas Hinda. You are
Right.
Henya, the daughter of
Of
Hinda.
Hinda. Right.
That's your soul
My
name.
Hebrew name. Yeah. Yeah.
Your soul name is Henya. So you
Yeah.
don't have to worry about liking or disliking your name. Henya is a beautiful name. And
Yeah.
Henya,
No. Yeah.
it's a beautiful name. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me just
And let me just say one thing.
yeah, go
When
ahead.
when we came to Canada, my
Yeah.
mother's name was changed to Helen,
Yeah.
because Hinda was, a
Too
Polish name
Jewish.
or Jewish name, whatever. I'm Jewish Polish.
Too
So
Jewish.
it was changed to Helen.
Yeah.
So, you know, and then I was adopted by Helena.
Oh,
So,
interesting.
it's so coincidental, so
Yeah.
coincidental.
God has some kind of a plan
I don't know, but
or a
I'm
very
sure he
big
did.
plan.
Yeah. So
So
anyway, so yes, so my mother and you had the same name.
yeah, I'm very honored. Um, Rita, let me ask you a question. I know that you volunteer your time to educate the public about the Holocaust by sharing your story. Why is it personally meaningful to you to do that?
Um, well, I I I never did that for a long, long, long time.
Why
Uh,
not?
well, when I first came to Canada, when I was a little girl, I wanted to fit in,
Right.
and it was um, oh, I'm forgetting my words in my old age. There was a lot of dislike for Jews at that time. And I didn't want anybody to know that I was in from Poland and whatever. I wanted to become Canadian. So I never talked about it. My father always did, and of course all my relatives did. And a lot of and when I first came here, they called me Teresa. I mean, that was my name for a while, until an aunt of mine went to my mother and said, "You can't keep calling her Teresa, because that's a Christian name. You can't." So my mother, not knowing English, not knowing what to do, not knowing anything, said, "Well, what should I call her?" So my aunt said, "I like the name Rita. Call her Rita."
Why?
Fine.
I wonder why your mother didn't call you Henya. I guess that was too Jewish
Well,
too.
that was also, yeah, yeah. So, anyways. I mean, today it would be fine because everybody has all these different names, but
Right.
in
So
there,
when did you
so
start sharing your story
okay,
and
I
why?
I had always promised my well, I have 7 grandchildren. My oldest is a granddaughter. I had My kids never went on March of the Living, although my daughter did go and volunteer in Israel for a month one summer when she was a teenager. I had always promised my granddaughter when she was old enough to go on the March of the Living that I would go. And that happened. So the first time I went was in 2023.
Oh, wow.
Um, my
Recently.
grand, yeah, my granddaughter. I don't know. My daughter had mentioned to the organizers that I was a Holocaust survivor, and I always said I would go along. I didn't really know in what capacity. Anyways, I went along as a survivor and as a speaker, and it was an unbelievable, amazing trip. Um, and March of the Living organizers and the Holocaust survivors that I met were so amazing, so warm and accepting, and like immediately I was part of the family. And once you go, you don't stop. You just keep on going. And the the relationships that you build up, aside from the organizers and the other Holocaust survivors, but with the children, with the students, and to see their faces and how they accept these stories, and what happens to them when they hear the stories, is so heartwarming. Um, it changed my life completely. It really, really did. And I'm so sorry that I didn't start this a lot sooner. But everything in its time. I being a divorced person, I had a lot of responsibility to my children growing up and supporting them and everything else. And um,
And so,
because I never had or knew grandparents, and my parents who were phenomenal. I mean, my house was the house everybody congregated to as I was growing up because my parents were so great. Um, I never had, like, and they worked. So while I was growing up, so I wanted to be the best mother and the best grandmother that I could be. And I devoted all my time and effort and energy and everything to my kids and my grandkids. And quite frankly, I live for them. They're my life, and that's it.
that's
Um,
a beautiful thing.
so, but when I started talking at the march, it was another world opened up to me, a very important world, and I will do this as long as I possibly can.
And aside for uh, the March of the Living, I'm sure you tell your story at schools or other
Yes,
places.
yes, yes. I have told my story at a few schools. One of them being, and one time when I told my story was at the Chabad Center, where they happened to have the violins. And it was like it was just so funny because I'm telling my story, and people are taking pictures of violins and setting up all kinds of pods for their cameras and stuff, and I'm telling the story, and then this man approaches me like, would you mind, would you hold a violin for us and let me take a picture? And I'm like, of course. So and I never in my wildest dreams thought that this would be posted in the newspaper at
And
all.
these were violins that had been played in Auschwitz,
In
where, of course, your
Auschwitz.
mother
Yeah.
spent.
My mother
years.
thankfully survived.
Miraculously
Yeah,
survived.
miraculously.
Wow.
So that was, you know, all these things sort of bring tears to my eyes many times, many
Yeah.
times.
You
When we go to Treblinka, and there's this tombstone for Ostrovets, which is the city where I was born and where my sister, died. Um, uh, it. I mean, I cry. I
yeah.
cry.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Rita. Thank you very much. Any last words or message for the Society of the Four Arts audience?
Oh, to the Jewish population and to the entire world. We are we are good people. We, you know, we're not murderers. We want to just live our lives in peace. Um, I don't know why the world hates us, but uh, to the Jews, be strong. Um, I'm sure Hashem has, hopefully, um, good things for us. We always seem to survive. We do lose a lot of people. We have brought so much good to the world. Just see the good in us. Um, I don't know.
Thank
I will.
Henya. I'm going to
One
give a
last word. One last word, if
go
you don't
ahead,
mind.
please.
Um, I to the my to my dying day. Um, I cannot get rid of the guilt that I have for um, losing contact with Helena, and not knowing when she passed away. Um, I carry some of the guilt of not being able to write her letters back. But when I was a little girl, when I didn't even know how to write, um, it always preys on my mind. And um, one last thing, I have told my children that when I die, on my tombstone somewhere, whether it's in brackets next to Rita, whatever, I want my name Teresa, because I will never forget her. She is in my head. I have many guilts that I didn't keep in contact with that family, but as a child, my father wanted me to become to become Canadian, to forget the war, and he wanted to forget the war. I will never forget, but that's the guilt I carry. But my name will be on that. The name Teresa will be on that tombstone. That's that's it.
And you can even put Helena's name on the tombstone. She half raised you.
I never thought of that.
I just want to say, at the risk of telling you something you already know, in terms of this guilt that you talk about, and I'm not a professional, but it's obviously you know that you were a child and that you had
I know.
no
I know.
agency here
I
and
know.
that you did your part in your life.
I know.
And Helena and God above knows that.
I know. I know.
Okay.
And it's so
Yeah, I just wanted to say,
coincidental.
I know that you know that, but I just had to say it
I
again.
know. Thank you. Thank you.
I
It's so coincidental that my mother's name turned out to be Helen, and she's Helena. And you
and
know
that
what?
you're Henya
They're
and I'm
both my
Hinda.
mother. Yeah.
So I
They're
want
both my mothers.
they're both your mothers,
Yeah.
exactly. I want to give a blessing, a bracha to you, Henya Bas Hinda, Henya, the daughter of Hinda, that God should continue to give you the strength and the wellness to tell your story, to inspire audiences, to continue being the wonderful mother and grandmother that I just know that you are, and to thank you very, very much for being here today.
Thank you. And when I come to Florida, Let's have lunch or something.
Let's do that. I would absolutely love that. You have my email address and my phone number.
I do.
I'll wait to hear from you. That would be an
Okay.
absolute privilege.
Thank you.
Henia and Hinda will go for lunch.
Okay.
Sounds good. Amanda, thank you so much for hosting us here on Zoom.
Of course, of course. Thank you
Thank
for
you,
sharing.
Amanda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thanks. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.